What has the COVID crisis taught you about international organisations like the UN, the World Trade Organisation, European Court of Human Rights, the WHO?
Well, to be quite frank, Neil, it has made it more clear than ever before that these organizations are not performing the function with which they were once called into being. They have proven to be useless in every respect. If you look at the UN, it was intended to create world peace and it made no attempt to stop war. The World Trade Organization, meant to promote trade, failed to protect that world trade. And we're now seeing massive shortages of food and goods. The European Court of Human Rights utterly failed to protect human rights when governments across Europe were imposing measures inspired by the Chinese Communist Party on their citizens. And let's face it, the World Health Organization encouraged lockdowns, which have proven to be more damaging to human health than a COVID virus could ever be. So in short, they have proven to be useless.
It's a damning critique that you offer there. You've also pointed out, I've seen you speaking online and elsewhere, you've pointed out that such bureaucratic bodies are undemocratic. Yeah. If so, how do we, the demos, the people, reclaim our power?
Well, I find that quite a tough one, Neil, and I'm also quite pessimistic about that because, obviously the most direct way would be for citizens to directly force their governments to withdraw from these organizations, whether that's through elections or through referendum. But I think it's unlikely. These organizations have managed to position themselves as unmissable in our societies. We have been indoctrinated to believe that the UN promotes peace, that the EU promotes peace. But they haven't. And I also have my concerns about whether it's even possible to awaken enough citizens, and especially in the Western world, to understand the power play that is happening at the moment. I think for as long as things are going well enough for a lot of people, it is difficult to break through the indoctrination of the media, which is pushing these government narratives. Then on the positive side, I do want to say that, there's also this idea of using your own energy, the freedom that we still have, and our creativity to build our own institutions and, your own parallel society, as it were. I think the vaccine discrimination that we saw during COVID has made us aware of the importance of not being dependent on state institutions. And it's about building a network of freedom-loving people who can form new supportive communities.
Mm-hmm. This is a line of thinking that I hear more and more. This idea that the institutions that we've taken for granted for generations, that we have to turn our back on them and find alternatives to them rather than seeking to fix what's there. But I'm obligated, to give the devil his due, as it were, or to suggest perhaps that some people would say that we're worrying over nothing. That what are the chances of all of these countries actually agreeing to surrender control, to compromise national sovereignty? How could there be an agreement, for example, that involves Russia at the moment? And would America seriously sign the same document as China? Are we overplaying for them the possible authority of groups like the WHO, the WTO, the UN?
Now, the problem is we're already seeing it in action at the moment. And whether it's China who's using its influence through the UN, through the World Health Organization, especially the year that America stepped back, we saw that massively expand. We don't even need these treaties for countries across the world to already implement similar COVID strategies. It's not even necessary. We simply just need those organizations saying, this is what you need to do, and everybody obeys. And what we've seen with the Chinese-style lockdowns is that Western governments have decided that, this sort of quasi-totalitarianism, it sort of suits their agendas, because not only is it now going to be about pandemics, about viruses, we're also going to be seeing this when it comes to climate change. I believe in South Australia, they're already experimenting with this. We're seeing a social credit system being experimented with in Italy. We don't need these treaties. It's already happening. The treaties are just a formal way to say, well, you're doing this, but it's already happening in practice.
To go back to your earlier point about alternative societies, is that realistic? Is that Is that a pipe dream, or are there enough people? Are there a large enough proportions of populations in enough countries that it becomes practical to consider alternative societies?
I think the problem is that you have to look at country per country about what is possible. Parallel societies already exist, for example, in South Africa, where Afrikaans communities have completely isolated themselves in villages, but on the other hand are also using institutions by building their own entire network across the country when it comes to safety, when it comes to education and schooling, when it comes to labor unions. But basically, they cover each and every aspect of society, so that they say they are no longer reliable on the state because it's not working for them anyway. In Europe, I think that will be a lot tougher because we have incredibly strong states that control every aspect of our lives. But I think the communities are growing, and you're seeing a lot of initiatives in the Netherlands as well, where people are trying to build up alternative networks. So an idea of a parallel society doesn't necessarily need to be physical. It can be through a network of like-minded people. And like I said, COVID has shown us that communities can be built, again, but on the idea of freedom-loving people who want to support one another. But it requires that people roll up their sleeves and really are willing to contribute to those societies, because you have to build it up from scratch, and that asks for a lot of sacrifice.
If you like this video, please subscribe to our channel for regular updates, or go to forumfordemocracy.com for more content.